I opened the wrong door on my wedding day. I was only looking for my bouquet, not my groom's hand dragging slowly along my best friend's curves. And what destroyed me most wasn't the touch. It was the way she tilted into it, as if she'd been waiting for him all along. Welcome back, my rainmakers. This is Rain Romance Library, where love burns hot, wrong, and beautifully unforgivable. Before we step deeper into this disaster, like, subscribe, and drop your hypes so we can keep the fire alive. Now, Episode 1 begins. The church was too loud, too crowded, too sacred for the kind of panic clawing up my throat. My maid of honor insisted on carrying my bouquet, but I'd forgotten my grandmother's charm, the tiny golden leaf I wanted pinned onto it. It didn't match the theme, but it matched my heart. So I slipped away, lifting my dress with both hands as I hurried toward the tiny prep room behind the choir hall. The secret room the coordinator showed me earlier. The room no one else was supposed to know about. I pushed the door open without thinking, and my world fractured. Darian, my groom, the man waiting for me at the altar. His hand wasn't on Liana's back or her arm. No. It was low, curving around her waist and sliding even lower, slow enough to make the air in the room feel warmer. Too familiar, too comfortable, too practiced. And Liana. God. Liana didn't flinch. She didn't stiffen. She didn't look guilty. She let him touch her. Worse, she leaned into him, like her body recognized his hand, like she'd been here before. A soft sound escaped her lips, the kind of breath a woman only makes when she's giving in. I froze in the doorway, veil trembling. My fingers went numb. My heart flipped over itself like it was trying to escape my chest. They didn't notice me at first. Darian's head dipped lower, as if he was about to whisper something against her neck. His thumb traced a line across her curves that no friend had any right to memorize. He didn't look conflicted. He looked connected. I made a sound, a mistake, a tiny gasp, and everything snapped. Liana's eyes flew open. Fear, guilt, recognition. Darian's hand jerked back like he'd touched fire, but the damage was already inside me, burning through every memory we'd ever shared. He turned toward me. Amara? Hearing my name on his tongue felt disgusting. Wrong, like he had stolen the right to say it. I backed out of the doorway. 1 step, 2, 3. My bouquet slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a dull, hopeless thud. Liana whispered something, too soft to catch, too late to matter. Darian moved toward me. He didn't run. He didn't chase. He walked like a man who believed I would stop for him because I always had. Not today. I turned and ran. The hallway blurred. Guests gasped as I burst through the back of the church, dress tearing somewhere along the seam. My mother called my name. My father stood so fast his chair crashed. My bridesmaids scattered. None of it registered. Because behind me, I heard Darian's voice, raw, desperate, shaking for the first time in his perfect life. Amara, wait! I didn't. Not when he reached the doorway. Not when he shouted again. Not when I felt my heart tearing apart like fabric in a fist. I stopped only when I reached the garden behind the church, the quiet part no one used. A place where the world couldn't see me fall apart. I grabbed the edge of the fountain to steady myself, lungs fighting for air. Then footsteps, hard, fast, coming straight for me. Darian. He looked wrecked, tie loose, eyes wild, hands trembling like he had just realized what he'd done, or what he'd lost. Amara, listen to me, please. I shook my head without looking at him. Don't. My voice cracked. Don't come closer. Amara, I swear, it's not. The door to the garden opened again. Liana, still flushed, still breathless, still wearing my friendship like a mask. And just like that, the three of us stood there, the bride, the groom, the traitor, inside the ruins of a wedding that would never happen. I wasn't crying yet, not because I was strong, but because the pain was too big to fit into tears. And this was only the beginning. I didn't speak, not to Darian, not to Liana. Silence was the only thing holding me together. Darian stepped closer anyway. Amara, what you saw, it wasn't, don't. My voice was barely there. He swallowed hard, shaking his head like he was trying to wake himself up from a nightmare. I panicked, he said. You were late. Everyone was asking for you. I just... Panic? That's what he called his hand wandering down my best friend's body? I stared at him until the lie fell apart in his throat. Liana spoke next, soft and calculated. He was overwhelmed. I was calming him down, that's all. Her tone was gentle enough to make me look at her, but her eyes, those eyes told another story. She wasn't apologizing. She was controlling the narrative. Darian ran a hand through his hair. Amara, please, just hear me. Nothing happened. Nothing real. Nothing real. Those two words slammed into my ribs, because suddenly something else slammed into my memory. A man's voice whispering to me months ago. Someone I should have never gotten close to. A connection I had buried so deep, I pretended it never existed. My chest tightened. Not now. Not here. Liana stepped toward me, fingers brushing my arm like she owned comfort she never earned. Amara, you look shaken, she murmured. Is everything okay? She tilted her head slightly, a small, subtle motion, but enough to freeze all the blood in my body, because that tilt meant she knew. She knew about the messages, the late-night calls, the emotional soft place I'd let another man hold when Darian and I were drifting. I stepped back immediately. Liana's smile didn't move, but something behind it sharpened. Darian noticed my shift and reached for me. Amara, what is it? What's wrong? Everything, but I couldn't say it. I couldn't confess anything, not after what I'd seen, not with Liana watching me like she was waiting for me to crumble. I whispered, I need space. Darian's face broke. Liana's didn't. He tried again, voice cracking. Amara, don't walk away from me, not like this. I shook my head and stepped past both of them, dress dragging across the stone. Neither moved to follow this time. Behind me, I heard Darian exhale like he'd been stabbed, but it was Liana's quiet voice that sliced through me. Secrets come out eventually, she said softly. Just make sure you're ready when they do. My heart dropped. She wasn't comforting me. She was warning me. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't fighting betrayal. I was fighting someone who already knew exactly where my weakness lived. Fade to black. Her words followed me all the way to the empty hallway. Secrets come out eventually. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from what Darian did, from what I did, long before today. I pressed my back to the wall and closed my eyes. And just like that, the memory hit. A late night. My apartment dark. My phone glowing. A man I should have never let that close. Elian. He wasn't a lover. He wasn't a threat. He was a comfort I kept when Darian and I were distant, both of us drowning in work and misunderstandings. It started with harmless jokes, turned into soft conversations, then into words that felt too soothing, too intimate. I never crossed a physical line, but emotionally, sometimes I wished Darian spoke to me the way Elian did. The tension had been intoxicating, dangerous, something I thought I buried. But Liana had found the chat thread on my tablet the night she stayed over. I never knew she saw it, until today, when she tilted her head like she was holding my entire truth in her hand. My stomach twisted. I pushed away from the wall right as footsteps approached. Liana. Of course. She walked toward me slowly, the picture of calm sweetness. But her eyes, they were studying me like I was already losing. You left so fast, she said softly. I wanted to make sure you were okay. I swallowed. What do you want, Liana? Her smile deepened. Just to help. Help? My pulse jumped. She stepped closer. You know, if Darian ever learns why you pulled away months ago, today might look very different to him. I felt the blood drain from my face. She leaned in, close enough for her perfume to press against my skin. Emotional betrayal, she whispered. Hurts just as much as physical, Amara. Sometimes more. My throat tightened. She knew everything, and she was using it. Why are you doing this? I whispered. Liana shrugged, innocent on the surface, lethal underneath. Because Darian deserves honesty, don't you think? My breath caught. Was she threatening to tell him? Now? Today? While the wedding was still half standing? Before I could speak, she tapped my arm lightly. Fix yourself before someone else does it for you. Then she walked away. No guilt, no hesitation, leaving me alone with a truth I could no longer escape. I slid down the wall, dress pooling around me. Darian's betrayal hurt. But this private guilt choking me. This was a wound I gave myself. And now, Liana held the knife. My hands clenched. I wasn't just spiraling. I was falling straight into a trap she'd set long before I realized the game had even started. I barely made it 3 steps down the hallway before a hand closed around my wrist. Firm, shaking, familiar. Darian. He pulled me into the small alcove beside the storage room, shutting out the world with his body. His breath hit my cheek before his words did. Why are you running from me? His voice wasn't angry. It was wounded, raw, too close. I tried to twist free, but he held me like letting go would end him. Amara, look at me. I didn't. I couldn't. He cupped my jaw, forcing my eyes to meet his. His expression was wrecked, half desperation, half something darker. I need to know what's happening to you, he whispered. I need to understand why you pulled away. Why you... His voice cracked. Why you looked at me like a stranger today. My chest tightened. He wasn't talking about the hidden room. He was talking about months before. The distance he felt but never understood. The distance Liana now had the power to weaponize. I saw you with her, I said, barely breathing. And I saw you look at me like you already gave up. He shot back, stepping closer. Do you know what that does to a man on his wedding day? His forehead almost touched mine. His hand slipped from my jaw to my waist, hesitant, trembling, a ghost of a hold he used to have on me. Heat curled between us, uninvited and unwanted. Amara, he said quietly. Tell me what I did. Tell me what I missed. Tell me why you're hurting in ways that didn't start today. I felt my pulse in my throat. He was too close, too intense, too much. He didn't want answers. He wanted the truth under my ribs, the one I couldn't let him see. Let me go, I whispered. He shook his head. Not until you tell me if I ever meant enough to fight for. My breath caught. Darian leaned in closer, his voice dropping lower, softer, dangerously intimate. If there's something you're hiding, tell me now, before I lose you completely. His thumb brushed my waist, barely a touch, but enough to pull every nerve in my body toward him. My lips parted, but nothing came out. The guilt, the betrayal, the confusion, the heat simmering between us despite everything. I was unraveling, and Darian felt it. He stepped in, chest touching mine, eyes locked like he was reading every lie I hadn't spoken yet. Then a soft voice sliced the tension in half. "Am I interrupting?" Liana, standing behind him, calm, sweet, smiling like she hadn't just ripped my life apart. Darian dropped his hand from my waist instantly, guilt flashing across his face. Liana's eyes flicked to where he touched me a second ago, then to me, then back to him, and her smile widened. "I thought you might need support," she said lightly. "Both of you." Darian stepped back, but the heat in the air didn't move with him. It stayed between us, thick, choking, unresolved. Liana tilted her head, watching me with quiet amusement. "Don't worry," she murmured. "We'll figure this out, together." Her tone said something else entirely. She wasn't offering help. She was tightening the trap. Liana didn't leave. Of course she didn't. She lingered just close enough to hear everything, just far enough to pretend she wasn't listening. Darian tried to steady his breathing. But the moment she stepped beside us, something in him shifted. He wasn't just confused anymore. He was suspicious. "Darian," Liana said softly, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "Maybe Amara's distance isn't because of you." My stomach dropped. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking through me. Darian frowned. "What does that mean?" Liana hesitated, beautifully performed, delicately timed. "I probably shouldn't say anything." That was enough. The hook was set. "Liana," Darian said, stepping closer to her. "Tell me." She sighed, the kind of sigh someone uses right before they destroy a life while pretending to protect it. "Months ago," she murmured, "Amara was talking to someone." My breath stalled. Liana continued, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think she meant anything by it. But the messages sounded emotional." Darian went completely still. The world narrowed to his silence. Then he turned to me, slowly, painfully, as if looking at a truth he never expected to face. "Amara," he said, voice raw. "Is that true?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. It didn't matter that I never touched Elian. It didn't matter that I shut it down. It didn't matter that it was a moment of loneliness during a time Darian and I were barely speaking. Liana had already framed it, and she was watching me break with a softness that didn't match the violence she was causing. Darian stepped closer, eyes shining with something sharp. Hurt, disbelief, betrayal layered over each other. "Amara," he whispered, "tell me you didn't give your heart to someone else while I was fighting for us." His voice trembled. My knees nearly buckled. "I didn't," I breathed. "Darian, it wasn't, I didn't." "I need the truth," he said, chest rising and falling too fast. "Not excuses, not half answers. Just tell me if there was someone else in your head when you were supposed to be mine." Those last words shredded me. I felt the guilt, yes, but also confusion, shame, and a rising heat I didn't want. Not from him, not now. The intensity in his gaze pulled every buried emotion to the surface, and my breath hitched. "I never touched him," I said, voice shaking. "I never chose him over you." "But you wanted what he gave you," Darian cut in quietly. "Didn't you?" I closed my eyes. That was the moment he snapped, not in anger, but in heartbreak so raw it tasted like blood in the air. He stepped back like my honesty physically hit him. "And Liana?" She stood behind him, hands folded, expression soft, eyes glowing with satisfaction she didn't bother to hide. She wanted this. She fed this. She watched the man who once adored me crumble under a truth she twisted into a weapon. Darian ran a hand through his hair, pacing once before stopping in front of me again. "I would have forgiven anything today," he whispered. "Anything, except this." My chest cracked. "Darian." He lifted a hand, not to touch me, but to stop me from speaking. "Don't," he said, voice breaking. "Please, not right now." I felt something inside me collapse, a quiet, irreversible tear. In the corner of my eye, Liana's lips curved ever so slightly. She didn't just win this moment, she orchestrated it. Darian didn't look at me again, not once. He walked past me, slowly, like every step hurt, and stopped beside Liana instead. He didn't touch her. He didn't need to. The shift happened in the space between them, the space that used to be mine. Liana angled her body toward him, barely, subtly, but enough to make everything inside me sting. She lowered her voice when she spoke. "Breathe," she whispered. "Just breathe. You don't have to take it all in at once." Her hand hovered near his arm, not touching, but close enough to feel intimate. Darian exhaled shakily, like those simple words steadied him more than anything I had tried to say. My heart thudded painfully. He pulled away from me and leaned toward her softness without thinking. Not love, not desire, just comfort he didn't ask for. Liana offered it anyway. My chest tightened as she guided him toward a bench near the garden path, sitting beside him with a careful closeness. Just enough warmth to be tender. Just enough distance to look innocent. Darian dropped his head into his hands. Liana rested hers lightly on his back, barely a touch, but devastating in its gentleness. "None of this is your fault," she murmured. Her voice was a soft balm over a wound she carved herself. He didn't look up. He didn't resist. He let her words sink into him like truth. I stood there, watching the pieces of my relationship slide into her palms. A quiet ache spread through me, slow and humiliating. She wasn't seducing him. She wasn't trying to look desirable. She was doing something worse. She was becoming his safe place, and he was letting her. Their heads dipped closer as she whispered something else, too soft for me to hear, but whatever it was made his shoulders loosen. Tears burned my eyes, not from betrayal, from replacement. I took one step toward them. Darian finally lifted his gaze, but not toward me, toward her. The look he gave Liana wasn't love. It was need. Something inside me broke in a way anger couldn't fix. He had pulled back from me, but he hadn't fallen alone. Liana was right there to catch him. Her hand brushed his briefly as she stood. It wasn't sexual. It was worse. It was gentle, intentional, claiming a space she had no right to fill. "Let me talk to the coordinator," Liana said softly, squeezing his shoulder just enough to make him breathe again. "You stay here. I'll handle everything." He nodded, trusting her instinctively. Trust he lost for me minutes ago. Then Liana glanced at me over her shoulder. Not with guilt, not with remorse, with quiet triumph. A silent message flickering in her eyes. "This is what happens when you fall apart, Amara." Someone else steps in. I realized then, I wasn't just losing Darian. I was watching my best friend slide into the exact space I once held, piece by piece, moment by moment, right in front of me. I didn't cry. Not when Darian leaned into Liana's comfort. Not when she stepped into the ruins of my relationship like she'd been rehearsing it. But when I walked away, heart split, pride bleeding, my phone buzzed. One vibration, then another. then another. Unknown number. Amara, are you okay? My stomach flipped. There was only one person who used that tone. Elian. A second message came before I could breathe. I heard something happened at the church. I'm coming. Coming? I froze in the hallway, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. How did he know? The answer hit me like ice. Liana. Of course it was her. Before I could process anything, my phone rang. His name flashed across the screen, a name I swore I deleted. I declined. He called again and again. By the fifth call, I picked up without thinking. Elian, don't! Where are you? His voice was low, urgent. I'm already inside the building. Tell me where you are. Inside? My chest tightened. Elian, you shouldn't be here. You didn't sound all right on the phone. What phone? I whispered. A pause. The one earlier? You said you needed someone you could trust. My blood ran cold. I never called you. I breathed. Silence. Then who did? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Footsteps echoed down the hall, fast and purposeful. Elian turned the corner before I could warn him. He looked at me, hair messy, breath heavy, worry etched into him like a bruise. Amara, he began. But his voice collided with another. Darian. He stood behind me, eyes dark, jaw tight, chest rising hard. Liana was beside him, hands folded like a saint. Darian's gaze moved from my face, to Elian's, to the space between us. The hurt inside him sharpened into something dangerous. So this is him, Darian said quietly. I stepped back. No, Darian, it's not. Elian moved protectively closer without thinking. Wrong move, the wrong moment. Darian stepped forward, fury trembling under his skin. You walked away from me, he said, voice shaking, for someone you didn't even deny wanting. I never... Elian cut in. She didn't do anything wrong. I came because... Because she called you? Darian snapped. Elian hesitated, and Liana watched the hesitation like it was a gift she wrapped herself. Darian's jaw clenched. Unbelievable. He turned to me, eyes burning. While I was breaking for you, you were calling him? I didn't call. My voice cracked. Darian, listen to me. Why should I? He whispered. You listened to him. Heat gathered behind my eyes, shame twisting my breath. Elian reached for me gently, too gently. Amara. Darian's expression shattered. Seeing another man's hand close to me, it finished him. He didn't yell. He didn't explode. He just looked like something inside him collapsed while standing upright. And then he said the sentence that sliced everything open. You made me the villain in a story where you were never mine in the first place. My knees buckled. Liana touched his arm lightly. He didn't pull away. He didn't even look at her. But the closeness was enough. Elian stiffened. I froze. Darian turned his face away from me. I need air, he rasped, stepping back from all of us. Liana followed him, not grabbing, not calling, just walking at his side, like she belonged in the space I kept losing piece by piece. Elian exhaled hard. What is happening? I didn't answer, because the truth wasn't something I could explain in one breath. This wasn't coincidence. Liana didn't just insert herself. She orchestrated every step. And now, the two men involved in my worst mistake stood on opposite sides of a war she started under my nose, and I was losing everyone in real time. Elian stayed behind as I walked away, but his presence clung to me like a stain Darian couldn't unsee. The hallway felt colder now, heavier. Every step echoed with all the things I didn't say, all the things Darian believed anyway. I reached the far side of the church before I broke. Not into tears, into silence. A deep, bruising silence that made my lungs ache. Then I heard him. Amara. Darian's voice, hoarse, uneven, hit the air behind me. I didn't turn. I couldn't. But he came anyway, closing the distance like he was dragged by something he didn't understand. Don't walk away from me, he said softly. Not now. Not after that. His steps were slow, like he was approaching a wounded animal that could shatter or strike. Darian, I whispered, please, just go. I can't. His breath hit my neck. I can't let that be the last thing between us. My eyes closed. I didn't call him, I said. I didn't ask him to come. I don't care who called him. Darian cut in, voice cracking. I care that you didn't push him away. I swallowed hard. His fingers brushed my arm, barely a touch, but enough to pull heat through every inch of me. Look at me, he murmured. I turned, slow and unwilling. His expression wasn't fury anymore. It was devastation, mixed with something darker. Jealousy, yes. Desire, yes. Shame, definitely. And something raw enough to burn both of us. You should have told me, he whispered. About the messages, about him, about anything. You never asked, I said quietly. That hurt him more than anything else. He stepped closer, breath catching, hands trembling like he wanted to touch me, but didn't trust himself. Do you know what it did to me? He said, voice low. Seeing you defend another man? Seeing him reach for you like you were his to comfort? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Darian lifted a hand to my cheek, hesitant, reverent, haunted. I can't lose you, he whispered. His thumb stroked my skin once, slow, soft, familiar. Heat bloomed under it, wrong but real. I leaned in, not out of forgiveness, but out of exhaustion, confusion, longing I didn't want to admit, a piece of me still tied to him in ways I hated. He exhaled shakily, forehead resting against mine. Amara, please. His lips brushed the corner of my mouth. Not a kiss, a question. My body answered before my mind did. The space between us tightened, pulled, frayed. His hand slid to my waist, lingering in the same place he touched Liana hours earlier. But this time, the heat belonged to me. For one moment, one wild, consuming moment, I leaned into him. His fingers curled deeper. His breath mixed with mine. The world blurred. We were a heartbeat away from falling into something raw enough to ruin us both completely. Then, reality cut the air. I stepped back abruptly. Darian froze, breath shattering out of him. Don't, I whispered, voice trembling. Please don't make this harder. The hurt in his eyes nearly destroyed me. He opened his mouth, but another presence in the hallway stole the words from him. Liana, standing there, perfect posture, hands clasped, smile faint, controlled. Her eyes weren't warm, they weren't sad, they were lit with something sharp, something quietly furious. She saw everything, not enough to accuse, but enough to hate. And the way she looked at me? It wasn't jealousy of Darian. It was jealousy of my collapse, my softness, my breaking point. Because for the first time, Darian reached for me instead of her. Liana didn't speak. She didn't move. She just watched. And in that silence, something inside her snapped so quietly it didn't make a sound. But I felt it, a shift, a decision, a promise of destruction, not from him, from her. Liana didn't confront us in the hallway. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse. She simply turned and walked away, silent, composed, dangerous. That was how I knew the real damage hadn't started yet. Darian tried to steady himself, But whatever almost happened between us left him unanchored. His breath uneven, hands flexing at his sides like he didn't know what to do with the need still burning in them. "Amara," he began. But Liana's voice floated back into the corridor, soft, thoughtful, carefully designed. "Darian, could we talk? Alone?" He stiffened. I felt it, the pull of guilt, the instinct to follow her calmness after drowning in my chaos. He looked at me once, lost, torn, then followed her. I stayed where I was, heart thudding painfully as the sound of their footsteps faded into the narrow hallway behind the reception rooms. I shouldn't have listened, but every instinct screamed that she was about to finish what she started. I moved quietly, stopping just before the corner where their silhouettes blurred against dim wall lights. Darian spoke first. "What is it?" Liana's tone was gentle. Too gentle. "I'm worried about you." He exhaled harshly. "Today fell apart in ways I didn't see coming." Her hand touched his arm, soft, sympathetic, deceptive. "Because you didn't know the whole truth," she whispered. His breath hitched. "Liana, don't do this." She stepped in front of him, forcing his eyes to meet hers. "You deserve honesty," she murmured. "Especially when you gave Amara nothing but loyalty." My chest tightened. Darian's voice was gravel. "Just say it." Liana nodded slowly, as if reluctant, as if this wasn't the moment she had been building toward. "Amara didn't stop talking to him," she said quietly. "Not when you two argued. Not when things got hard. Not when you thought she was fixing things with you." Darian's jaw clenched. "That's not—" "She replied to him while you were choosing wedding venues?" Liana continued. Her voice was fragile and deliberate. "While you were planning a future with her, she was building an emotional one with someone else." My pulse stopped for one instant. Darian staggered back slightly, like the truth punched through him. "She wouldn't—" His voice broke. "She couldn't—" "She did," Liana whispered. "I saw the messages." His shoulders tensed. His breathing sped up. He was breaking exactly the way she wanted him to. Liana looked down, squeezing her hands together as though the truth hurt her. She told him she missed the way he understood her. A pause. "And that she felt safer with him than with you?" My knees weakened. I had never said that, but the lie fit too perfectly into the wound already open. Darian inhaled sharply, stumbling back as if the air had weight. "No," he whispered to himself. "No, she wouldn't say that. She loves—" Liana lifted her eyes to his, soft, sympathetic, completely false. "She loved the attention he gave her, Darian. She loved having someone else she could lean on while you were fighting for her." Darian's face collapsed. His hands shook violently. He tried to look angry, but it wasn't anger. It was heartbreak in its purest form. The kind that strips a man down to nothing. "She was never mine," he whispered. The words carved through me like glass. Liana stepped closer, placing her hand on his chest. Not seductive, but grounding. "You tried," she said softly. "She didn't." He shut his eyes, and something inside him shattered beyond repair. That was when Liana looked toward my corner. She knew I was there. She always knew. Her gaze met mine for one fleeting second, and in that second, she didn't hide anything. Not the victory, not the cruelty, not the obsession. She didn't want Darian. She wanted me destroyed, and she was almost finished. I didn't wait for Darian's reaction. Didn't wait for Liana to land her final blow. I walked out of the church, out of the ceremony, out of the ruins of the life I almost married myself into. That night, I packed a suitcase. The next morning, I moved into a small apartment 2 districts away. No forwarding address, no explanations. Silence was the only thing I still owned. For a few days, I convinced myself distance would save me, that removing myself from their reach would give me space to breathe again. I blocked Darian's number, muted our group chats, stopped checking the shared wedding folder. I chose myself, or tried to. But healing doesn't start when you run. It starts when you stop hearing the echo of someone else's name in your chest. Darian's echo didn't fade, and Liana didn't allow silence. She filled it, piece by piece, word by word, scene by scene. It started quietly. A tagged photo from a charity event, Darian standing beside her, both smiling politely. Then a story repost, Liana handing him a water bottle during a late-night meeting. Then another, her organizing his files, laughing at something he said. Nothing romantic, nothing incriminating, just soft. Soft where I had been exhausted. Soft where I had been tense. Soft where I had been breaking. I saw none of this firsthand. I unfollowed everyone. But people talk. Screenshots travel. Mutual acquaintances slip. She's helping him get back on his feet. They've been spending a lot of time together. She's been good for him, honestly. Every update was a bruise, and then came the one that split something open inside me. A picture, not staged, not formal, just a candid someone posted at a friend's gathering. Darian sitting on a couch, leaning slightly toward Liana. She was laughing, head back, eyes bright. His gaze was locked on her like she was the only person in the room. The chemistry wasn't loud. It wasn't provocative. It wasn't sexual. It was worse. It was natural. The kind of closeness that grows in all the quiet places I used to fill. The caption under the photo was simple. Unexpected comfort. I stared at it too long. Then another image surfaced a week later. Liana handing Darian her scarf in the cold. His fingers brushing hers as he took it. Not a kiss. Not a touch meant to be intimate. Just a small exchange padded in warmth. Humiliating warmth. Because that was the kind of gentleness I had run out of. The kind of softness I didn't know how to sustain during the final months of our relationship. Liana had stepped perfectly into the vacuum I left behind. Not replacing me loudly, replacing me quietly, seamlessly, effortlessly, like she had studied everything I had done wrong and simply corrected it. People started assuming things, and assumptions, whispered long enough, become reality. Even without seeing them in person, I could feel the shift. Darian no longer spiraled alone. Liana was there to soothe every bruise she helped create. And in those little moments, the ones captured by accident, the ones shared by friends, the ones whispered across rooms, I watched myself vanish from his life, not because he chose her, but because she positioned herself where he was weakest, and he let her. Time moved strangely after that. Days blurred into each other, soft and quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you believe maybe, just maybe, you can start over. No texts, no calls, no updates, just silence. I learned how to breathe again, not deeply, not fully, just enough to stay alive inside the small apartment I now called home. Some mornings, I even forgot what Darian's voice sounded like. Some nights, I stopped checking the door, half expecting Liana's shadow to slip underneath. For the first time in weeks, the ache in my chest dulled. Not gone, just muted, until my phone buzzed. Once, then again, then non-stop. A rapid cascade of notifications, vibrating so violently I thought the device might crack. I frowned and picked it up. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then the headline caught up with my eyes. Darian and Liana are engaged. A private ceremony for a public rebirth. My breath vanished. More alerts poured in. Tags, mentions, screenshots. Everyone who knew I once stood in a wedding dress for him was now sending me the funeral announcement of that old life. I opened the first post. A photo. Sharp, golden, perfect. Darian, in a dark tailored suit. Liana, in a soft champagne dress. Their hands intertwined. Not forced, not awkward. Practiced. Like they'd been doing it for a while. His gaze was steady. Hers was glowing. My fingers trembled. Another photo. His arm around her waist. Her head resting lightly on his shoulder, like it belonged there. Another. Them laughing at something the photographer said. A synchronized kind of happiness that didn't happen overnight. My heart clenched so fast it left me breathless. Then the captions appeared. Darian's post. Choosing peace this time. Peace, after destroying mine. Liana's post. She was there when the world broke. She. Me. A ghost she buried so she could wear my ring. Blood rushed in my ears. My vision blurred. I couldn't tell if I was angry, shattered, or simply hollow. Maybe all three. Another notification popped up. A video this time. Darian adjusting Liana's bracelet. Her looking up at him with soft affection. Him smiling faintly, the way he used to smile at me when he thought I wasn't watching. My stomach twisted. People commented already. They look perfect together. Finally, a healthy match. She was always the better fit. He deserves peace after everything. Liana is such a real one. Real one. The same girl who held the match while my world burned. I set the phone down, but it kept lighting up, dragging me back into a story I no longer had a role in. And for the first time since the ruined wedding day, tears came. Not soft, not pretty, not cinematic, violent. The kind of tears that come when the last piece of hope you didn't even realize you were holding snaps clean in half. Darian didn't choose her. He replaced me with her, publicly, proudly, without looking back. And Liana had won exactly the way she planned. I wasn't heartbroken. I was erased. I didn't sleep the night their engagement broke the internet. My phone kept buzzing until I shut it off completely, but the silence somehow hurt more than the noise. By morning, the world had already adjusted to Darian and Liana as a couple. People love a clean narrative, a perfect replacement, a seamless shift from one bride to another. I wasn't part of that story anymore. I stepped outside my apartment for the first time in days, needing air sharp enough to cut through the ache. But she was waiting. Liana, leaning against the railing of the building like she owned the entire block. Hair tied back, dress simple, posture soft. But her eyes were made of ice. I stopped short. She smiled like we were old friends meeting for brunch. I figured you'd try to breathe today, she said casually. My hands curled at my sides. What do you want? She pushed off the railing and walked toward me with slow, measured steps. To finish this. My pulse quickened. She didn't raise her voice. Liana never needed volume. She cut deeper with whispers. You should congratulate us, she murmured. It would look healthier, stronger. I let out a broken laugh. You expect me to congratulate you for stealing my life? Her head tilted, amusement flickering across her lips. Stealing? She echoed. Amara, you abandoned your life. I just picked up what you dropped. My chest tightened. She stepped closer. You were slipping long before the wedding, pulling away, hiding things, breaking in places you won't admit. A pause. Darian didn't leave you. He simply followed the stability you couldn't give. Her words were knives dipped in honey. I swallowed. Why do you hate me so much? Liana blinked slowly, as if the question bored her. Hate requires emotion. another step closer. She whispered, "I just wanted to win." The air left my lungs. She leaned in, her voice low enough that only I could hear it. "You always had everything handed to you, even when you didn't want it. Darian, the attention, the admiration, the support you never knew how to keep." Her lips grazed my ear. "I wanted to see what you looked like without it." I felt the ground tilt. She exhaled softly, almost affectionately. "And now I have." My knees nearly buckled. "Darian doesn't know," I whispered. "He'll never know," she replied. "I made sure of that." She stepped back, smoothing her dress like the conversation was a mild inconvenience. "He thinks you never loved him enough," she said. "And he thinks I did." Her smile sharpened. "That's all men need to choose." I felt something inside me crack. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, final break. Liana took one last step toward me. "This was never about him," she whispered. "It was always about watching you fall." My throat closed. "Why?" I managed. She stared at me for a long moment, expression unreadable. "Because losing you destroys you more than losing him ever could." And with that, she turned. She walked away without looking back, slow, confident, victorious. Her silhouette disappeared around the corner, leaving me standing alone with the truth carved into my bones. There would be no justice. Not for me. Not for what I lost. Not for what she took. Darian would spend his life believing he found peace. Liana would hold the trophy she ripped out of my hands. And I didn't fight, didn't scream, didn't burn anything down. I just walked. One step, then another. Through the quiet city streets, through the morning chill, through the last pieces of who I used to be. No healing, no empowerment, no rebirth. Just gone.